Hey everyone, this is Chris. Welcome back to the channel. So we're talking about the banking crisis and what's going on in China. It appears to be a real thing, and I feel very sorry for these people. Just imagine if you put your money in a bank and you couldn't get it. Also, too, if you're new here, my name is Chris, and this is to help you navigate and grow. So we'll start with this. I've been seeing different articles about that, and perfectly frank, I don't know what to make of what's going on. There's always something happening in China, and news reports are scattered, so you never know for sure until you start to see it confirmed by multiple places. And took a look at it again recently, and it looks like to be a real thing. Also, too, there's a mortgage crisis going on as well, where people are boycotting paying their mortgages. The basic gist of it, there's people who put money into we'll just say Evergrande. Put a deposit, will 20 up towards $50,000, something like this, and they didn't get their money back, nor did they even have a house that was supposed to be built by them. So the banking thing here that we're talking about is a little bit different. People just had their money sitting in a bank, and there's 4 banks in the Henan province. This is one of the poorer regions of China, and Chinese people like to make a joke that all the criminals live in Henan, which evidently might be a thing. It looks like the bank manager person or bank owner ran away, basically. With everyone's money, and we're not talking about small money here. From what I gather, and you get different estimates. I've seen low estimates of like $1.5 billion. It just disappeared, as much as $5 billion. So your guess is as good as mine in that, but it's not small money by any stretch. And people who put their money in these banks, there is insurance in China, but whether or not people actually get their money, it remains to be seen. One of the things with China, and it's hard to talk about these things because you have to understand the context and the culture. So generally speaking, there are protests quite frequently in China, actually. Now, whether or not they, they get large enough and big enough to where the government can't hide it is not that common, right? So you'll see police arrest people from time to time. You'll see sort of what's the word to say, lawlessness in China. You'll see it, but it's not like it reaches national attention because it just happens all the time. The same way that jaywalking happens all the time here. Now, what becomes different is when people are brave enough, essentially, to just bring out these big signs and protest what is a clear injustice, and that's when the government can't really hide it. And it becomes really, really uncomfortable when you got the situation where there's just too many people that are complaining about their money, right? So we're also living in a world where everyone has a phone. Now, here's the other thing that happens in China quite a lot as well. It happened in Hong Kong. You can see this is in Henan. Essentially, these guys in these white shirts, they're basically a bunch of thugs. That's the easiest way to put it. Some of these people could be police officers that are just not in uniform. Some of these people could be like mafia kind of people. The people in the back in the blue shirts are the police, and they're just watching these white shirt people get ready to essentially attack the protesters. You can see it here. You'll see this a lot. You'll see this kind of thing where, for example, let's say there's someone who lives in a house, and there's a big business developer who wants that property. They'll just send in like these kind of guys, right? Usually wearing masks. In this case, they're wearing COVID masks, but oftentimes they'll just wear a mask to hide their face, and they'll come in and just basically beat their residents out of their home. So unfortunately, in China, if you have money, you generally can do whatever you want, or if you have government connections, you can do what you want. And again, this is a major protest outside the bank. So the issue becomes when there's enough people who are upset. Obviously, it becomes national media attention. After the situation with COVID, what the government tried to do was tell people not to travel to the banks and say because it's unsafe for COVID. Like the government tried to quell the protests. Okay, now from the government's point of view, the Chinese government will know this stuff is wrong. Like it's like any sane person knows that if a bank steals your money and runs away and sends in a bunch of thugs to beat up protesters, we all know it's wrong. There's nothing mysterious about whether this is right or wrong. It's clearly wrong. From the government's perspective in China, though, they just want to keep order, right? They know it's wrong, it's shameful. They just try to keep order and pretend like it's not happening. So that's a thing that's sort of how the Chinese government works. Just pretend things aren't happening and try to hide it as best you can. Or the other thing that they do often as well is say, oh, well, this kind of corruption is small. It's only a few banks, and we're doing our best to fight corruption, and we're the good government. So there's a couple of different ways to put it, but this is sort of the why we need, free speech around the world, right? The argument for free speech, against free speech in China, and you'll hear this argument because I used to teach at Tsinghua University, and if you know that university is essentially where all the presidents of China graduate, and so my students are essentially the future leaders of China. And the arguments that they would make is like, well, if we let everybody protest and we have free speech in the country, then there'll just be too many complaints and we can't operate. Which I get that point of view. I disagree with that point of view, but I get it. That's sort of their point of view. Or if we let everybody protest, then we will never have progress in the country. Is sort of how they think. You'll see some sort of Twitter videos of tanks, coming in to stop the protesters at the banks. It appears that the tanks are not real, so I don't show any pictures of that because it looks like it's not real. That's why someone asked me about this yesterday, and I saw the tank videos, but I just wasn't sure. But it looks like it's not real, and that was my early inkling as well. It's not real. Now, what else is happening? This is very much related. Is first you have people in China not paying their mortgage. People in China, and there's like 4 banks that they're not getting their deposits. Basically, their cash is gone at the moment. That is, they have FDIC in China, but who knows what's going to happen with that? Because if you're over a certain limit, that money is gone. Voyager is a crypto thing, and so there's certainly been people who are scared about losing their money to that. FTX is coming in to buy these things. I don't like FTX, and I keep seeing these things of FTX buying out things. So like, where's all this money coming from? For all we know, this all stuff is all tied together where everyone lost their money in crypto, and some people are going to end up like bandits in this situation. And we'll see. And you can see here, this is more Bankman-Fried. I'm just mentioning this because I think all these things are related to whether or not your money is safe. And that's sort of what I like to stress in this channel is that you put your money in different things. And I would be avoiding risky assets at this juncture, seeing what's, say, happening in China, just as a warning. Because I lived through 08, 09. Some of you are too young to know about these things, but I'm telling you, it's a real thing. Banks can actually fail. It's a real thing. The same way that your Dogecoin can actually go to zero. It really can happen to you. And some people don't believe it. They think it's all FUD, but I wouldn't put my faith in a dog. That's just me. I don't trust the Doge or the what's the other one, the Shiba Inu. I don't trust that dog coin. So the reason why I mention that is that you can look it up for yourself. This is Wachovia Bank back in 2008. There was a silent bank run, which is kind of interesting. So first you have bank run. The idea of a bank run, which is sort of kind of happening in China right now, is like there's a rumor or whispers that go out that this bank is going to fail. Basically, they're going to lose all your money. And so you literally got to get your money out of that bank before the owner just runs away, which just happened in China. Another thing that can happen too, this is Wachovia back in 08, is that people would draw their money, from the bank, and then draw it to basically be it under, at that time, I think 100,000 was the FDI insurance, right? Insured by the government. So you'll withdraw the money until you have like, say, $95,000 in there. And so then you feel fairly confident that your money is fine because even if the bank fails, the government will reimburse you. It is a crazy thing though, that to think about that if you put your money at a bank, the bank, would just lose your money and it's gone. But for those of you who lived through 0809, you'll know this stuff is real. And you can see here, Wachovia lost $5 billion in deposits. It's real scary. I lost money with Washington Mutual. That was a real thing. And for those of you who remember this, Washington Mutual, this was on the West Coast Bank. So some people watching this may be in Midwest or East, so you don't even know what this bank is. But it was a real bank. At the time it was. Obviously now it's gone. But people lost money with this stuff. And like I said, I always mention these things. And the other thing too I mentioned as well is if you ever see older YouTubers that never talk about 0809, chances are they don't have any experience with this stuff, meaning that they weren't investing or doing anything in the market. And there's some older ones out there, be it I'm just saying who the name, it's either the stock mother Larry Jones, never mention that stuff. Because for people who live through this stuff, if you experience this stuff where your bank goes to zero or you watch the market completely crash, you do not forget, the same way as the dot-com bubble. When you watch stuff go to zero, you do not forget, right? The same way that people who are in Voyager, if you lost all your money in that stuff, you do not forget. And so, like I said, I sympathize with protesters in Henan because, you want your banks to be safe. I really understand what's going on. So, and also too, I want to bring into, sort of what's happening in USA. Sometimes people turn on the TV and they think, only crazy stuff happens in China. Or people just pretend like their side is never wrong on things. Always show you guys this picture of January 6th. I do not sympathize with these people whatsoever. I do not want people doing violent things. I don't want people attacking our Capitol building. I've been seeing a lot of new footage on that. Same regard too. I don't want people looting our cities in Santa Monica, right? We have a problem in USA where people say, "Oh well, my side is innocent. The other side all does the bad things." Like anyone who talks like that is just a bunch of BS. Unfortunately, we just have lawlessness in some parts of our country and culture, and I don't like any of this stuff. So, this is a real thing, and there's a big difference, which is what I'm telling you guys, of people looting and what's happening in China. The difference being, the people who are protesting in China are standing in front of a bank. They're not doing anything violent at all, and these basically thug people are coming in wearing white shirts and beating them off. So we don't really have the cultural equivalent of this that I can think of. If you guys can think of it, please let me know. But that's why I'm trying to explain, like, for those of you who aren't familiar with Chinese culture and you only look at things that happen in USA and try to equate the two, it's just not quite the same. So it's just not quite the same. and so that's why I just wanted to put context of we have problems here in USA, but you can't quite exactly equate it to stuff that's happening in China. The one thing I can tell you about the Chinese system, though, is that the elites control everything, and traditionally the sort of the poor Chinese people just go along with whatever because they can't really change anything. Here in USA, I don't know I don't even know where to even begin to explain like the whole looting situation. I think the deal is with this kind of stuff is, how can I say? Here, I think for people who loot or do these whatever things, they don't think the repercussions are so bad, maybe, right? They just think the risk is fine for the reward I can possibly get. So stealing shoes and the risk that I'm taking, I'm not going to get punished that badly. That's how people do these kind of things. In China, this idea of like mass looting would be strange to them. And even this kind of thing where you're protesting, these are essentially like families out protesting, I want my money back. This is actually taking a great risk, essentially. But and we're not even talking about looting, we're completely peaceful stuff. When you're talking about this kind of thing in China, though, there is a risk. So, like for example, in Hong Kong, if you're familiar with this, there were people that were peacefully protesting with they called the umbrella protest. I think that might have been 3 years ago already. Basically, protesting for freedom of speech and these kind of things. They don't, freedom of internet, right? Basic freedoms. And in that situation, the Hong Kong would call in the government would call in these thugs and basically beat the people. So, I'm sorry, I'm not really making much sense. I'm just trying my best to explain that there are different things going on around the world, but it's not exactly equal to the same thing. So I know I got on a long tangent. These kind of topics are good for classroom discussion because people have more questions and get clarifications, and you have to understand the histories of what's going on. But I guess in some, though, is your money unfortunately is not safe, and that's why, like, even if you just have cash, it may not be safe if you're in the wrong institution. So that's why I don't mess with the crypto stuff at all, and you don't hear me ever in this channel promoting crypto, going back to the whole crypto thing, because these literally people in China just have their money in a bank, and you would think that would be safe as well. So do be careful out there, and do understand that people do lie for money. I've mentioned this movie several times. Actually, I didn't put it up here, but I'll just type it in real quick. The movie Margin Call. If you haven't seen it, I've recommended it several times because a lot of people didn't see it. It's an older movie. Most people know the movie The Big Short, but haven't seen the movie Margin Call. So if you haven't seen that, you should definitely check it out. So anyway, I do prefer watching, and I'd love to hear you guys' opinion on this stuff. If you think the banking situation will continue in China, if you think it will spread here, or if you feel like our banking system is totally fine, and we're not going to have anything like this. So anyway, thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll catch you in the next video.